My name is Derek Karner. I'm a project manager at the Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts. Maybe if everyone could mute their mics. During the pandemic, we got this offer to partner with the Potato Farm Project, represented by Videhi and Drove here today. And they have a space in North Fork of Long Island in Jamesport. And they made it available to EFA member artists to go out there and have a retreat, which has been really valuable for them to be able to get out of the city and see some new spaces, new light by the water, and be inspired. This has been going on since October. And Amy Myers is our current resident who has been busy with drawing and working on her book. So I'm going to turn it over to her. She's going to talk about her practice, and then we'll have a little Q&A afterwards. And if you're welcome to use the chat to introduce yourselves, share links, make connections. It's a small group.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Derek, for the introduction. And also thank you to EFA and the Potato Farm for making this retreat available. It's the value of this, I cannot underestimate. The first thing I noticed when I got here was like the kind of like the way nature can really silence my inner mind. And I feel like being here has really given me an opportunity to have kind of a deeper connection with my work, with less distractions, less of the kind of like normal noise I get in the city. And it's taking me to some interesting new places in my work. So it's been revelatory for me. And I want to thank everyone who made this possible. So I think what I'm going to start with today is I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about my initial drawings. And then I want to jump into what I'm doing here at the Potato Farm, and how, I guess I want to kind of like circle back to the topic of how small works on paper feed into the larger context of my practice. Because I think before this residency, I kind of like was relating to my my smaller drawings as kind of studies or, you know, smaller pieces. But I realized being here that they're not that. Like there's this real intensive ability that I have to kind of like discover and think with the smaller pieces, and how they actually function as revelations. They're revelatory to bigger pieces. You know, they're almost like the building blocks or like the quanta. It's almost like the inner tissue of something that can later develop into a totality of sorts. So with that said, let me just like kind of pop through some of my first works. I'll share my screen. And so I started, my work has always been like large scale drawings. This piece I finished when I was in graduate school at the Chicago Art Institute. This is from 1999. It is Reeves BFK paper. It's a graphite gouache in some Conte. This piece is about 10 foot by 10 foot. It's in a museum collection in California. And I'm kind of showing these pieces because, you know, they take up to a year to make. They are like hyper complex. There's like 33 different like specific systems that I developed that are interrelating, that function to kind of create the work. So it's not something I like envision, see, and then I execute it. It is like it's like an organic living process that these kind of symbols and these little quanta packets kind of make kind of for me. So in a way, I'm like always somehow like mitigating or, you know, corralling these like systems into like these forms. This is another piece. This was at the Berkshire Museum 2 summers ago. I had a solo show there. This is a 10-foot by 8-foot work on paper entitled The Opera Inside of the Atom. And again, it's this investigation into like a complex set of systems that interact with each other that then go to create these kinds of like forms. Okay, this is another piece. Ooh, I didn't know I could do that way. This is a detail of another piece, which kind of goes in. So I'm kind of showing like these like symbols. Like if you see these like oval, elliptical type of shapes, to me, those are like specifically called quantum metronics, and they are part of these totalities, these investigations that can actually travel between dimensions. They can bring and transfer information into these systems, these worlds, like at will, you know, and each kind of shape and each piece like this right here has its own kind of function. So basically you could break it all down. You could break my work down into a language. It's like a visual language that I've developed throughout the years that have come from, my dad's a physicist. So, and I know physicists, I interact with them. I've read a lot of physics. I took physics in college. And so in a way, it's like it's a way for me to kind of play with like reality and string theory, multi-dimensions, and kind of bring my own voice to it, my own kind of intuitions around what constitutes reality, and you know, what is the terms of existence, right? Of all existence, what are those terms? And I actually feel like I get somewhere with this. Like I do feel like I am kind of like having a relationship with a larger whatever it is, and it's very fulfilling. So this is a detail of that first drawing I showed you, the heliocentropy, and this kind of shows the amount of like detail that I can get, you know, and how I kind of like think and be through these forms. Let me see. Okay, here's another piece. As you can see, there's the quantumetronics are happening up here. These different kinds of systems. I don't want to go into all of it because it's, you know, it's a lot. But and this again, this is in a museum in California, and this is like 8-foot by 10-foot work on paper. This is another piece. And again, you can see the quantumetronics and just kind of the way, you know, this, you know, this is organized. And then over here is a large diagram right here on the right. This diagram is there because this actually, this is super important. Okay. So this is going to loop back to like my kind of like ideas around how small works on paper, how they function like within the totality of my work. So before I made all this work, I was an undergraduate at the Kansas City Art Institute. Woohoo! And I had my mentor who really was my mentor that really like helped me organize my way of thinking into this work. He not only like kind of guided me into the ability to like think and relate to this work, but he guided me into the ability to sustain this work. Like it's two different kinds of like mindsets. And so this entire body of work started as a set of an initial like 10 diagrams. Okay. And this is one of the 10 diagrams. And so I have those original works on paper, and I don't know if this is making sense, but these original 10 diagrams have made their way into kind of signifying these more complex systems. So to me, it's a very kind of circular, has like an infinite kind of spin to it. So this is another piece. And with this piece, this is the hostess, the highness, and the hubris. I also, with this one, was embroidering silver into the work on paper, which was extremely tedious. And okay, here's one more drawing. This is 8 foot by 8 foot. And then same materials. So then in 2019, I made a transition from painting into drawing. I kind of hit a wall with the works on paper. I picked up oil paint and started to translate my my works into oil on canvas. So this is a 6 foot by 6 foot. This is called Initial String Untethered from 2019. It's oil on canvas. This is part of I had a solo show at Malin Gallery. That's my dealer in New York in 2019 in Chelsea. And this, I had 5 large scale paintings, and this is one of the large paintings here. And then this is another painting. It's the same 6 foot by 6 oil on canvas. It's called Daughter Universes. This is the piece that the show was named after. And it was, I feel like the medium itself like created this huge breakthrough for me in my work in terms of like, it kind of like the oil has given me like another dimension really into my work where it didn't exist before in the drawing. I mean, just because the nature of the medium itself, I felt like it's a lot. But I felt like there was a fluidity and like a body to it that I was able to access. So, and it's also this whole world of color that opened up to me. And one of the ways I do think about color, because even in my drawings, I'm very like monochromatic, because for me, color is completely related to time. Color is time. And so I think about color more in terms of like hots and colds. I don't so much think about it in terms of any other way. So I use it as like an on off, because even in like cosmology, like stars or planets have like a red shift or a blue shift. And that's always indicative of whether something's moving far away from you or towards you. So it's always about like frame of reference and motion. So I use color, I think loosely about frame of reference and motion, more so than like in other ways. So, okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and show you what I've been working on here, which are these little drawings. So I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to go, sorry, back to screen share. I'm going to go here. Sorry, give me a minute. I'm a little like tech challenged, but hang on, give me 1 second. Desktop. Okay, here, I'm going to open these up. Okay. Double click. Okay, so give me 1 more second. Stop share, screen share, share this. Okay, cool. All right. So while I've been here at the potato farm, hang on, let me go here. I brought with me smaller pieces of paper and my materials to start kind of digging in, playing around with form. So I started out with this piece and then jumped into working on this piece. So what I'm kind of doing here is like, I'm really interested in the kind of like interstitial spaces that I'm finding in some of my larger works on paper. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of like breaking down the language, right? And I'm drawing it in a really linear way so I can kind of see through it. And I'm starting to play around with like what some of these spaces are and what they generate. So I'm kind of like asking questions around what are some of the things that are happening? And I'm noticing that while I'm here that things are starting to kind of pull apart and open up and kind of explode in a way that I haven't seen before. So I've kind of come to something like this, which to me is, I mean, when you look, like for me, as I was making this and looking at this, I first of all, it's a continuation into my interest in visible light, like the visible light spectrum, and how like it is just this like small kind of portion of what we're able to perceive in terms of wavelengths in the universe. Um, but I'm starting to relate to it even like in a different way. I think that there's something about putting like pencil to paper that just really allows me to kind of rethink and discover and open up spaces in my work that I couldn't do through painting or through like large scale pieces, because I feel like there's a different kind of risk factor happening. So these like lower risk pieces are ways that I can kind of explore. So this is another, so from that, this is starting to kind of happen. It's almost like the quanta, like it's part of my language now. Like I'm discovering new words. So these are now little quanta pieces, and these right here are representing like very specific like vibrations within the wavelengths. So if we go back to this, like these are all really specific wave signatures. And so I'm finding ways to like say that like this is a very specific wave signature. So I can take that now and I can combine it with other things. And then those symbols are all going to create new symbols. So I guess what I'm doing is like, I've been able to kind of like boil down to the language, which I'm bringing this up because it doesn't happen often. I really don't get to this kind of core part of my investigation very, very frequently. So for me to be here, being able to get to these like little signifiers, little pieces of time, little pieces of like space, to me, I know that like a whole new body of work is coming. Like I know that now, and I'm really excited. And I'm going to continue, to explore, because this right here is orange, red, green. So I'm going to do like the symmetrical part of that, which is going to be blue, violet, and yellow. So I'm going to start creating my little quanta, and then I'm going to start bumping them together, and then they're going to spin out, and who knows? So anyway, I'm excited, and I'm really grateful. I feel like my time here really has contributed to this, ability to get to a very still space inside of my process, which from that really quiet space, I find that these little seeds can really come out, and I have a lot to take back with me to New York, to EFA. So thank you. Done.
Thanks, Amy. That was really great. So we have a little time for questions, if anybody has any. If you're, I don't know if there was any in the chat. There seems to be. Amy, can you see the chat? There's one from Julie at the end.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. Okay, chat. Julia. I'm curious about the vertical orientation and bilateral symmetry that seems to underlie your thinking. Does it have a specific association or inspiration? Totally, it does. That's a great question. Yeah, the bilateral. Okay, so in physics, everything is spinning. This is something that the Kansas City people know. When I was an undergrad at Kansas City, I was obsessed. I used to hang things from my studio and spin it, because everything in nature is spinning. All the particles spin. They spin this way. They spin up, down, left, right. Everything has a spin, and so with spin, there's a natural symmetry. So for me, it's with my work. Like I actually think it's like in my mind, it's really just one side, but you're just looking at it spinning. So that's what it is. It's spinning. That's the symmetry. And then I think the vertical orientation to me has always like, it's more of a reference to architecture than it is to landscape. I think it's something like constructed and built as opposed to like a horizon line. So that's, the loose associations with building is why it's the vertical. They're always slightly vertical. Even when they're horizontal, they're slightly vertical. Will your book give us, the book. Oh my gosh, the book is so cool. I'm collaborating with a team, some phenomenal artists. I think he's here. Yes, Janany is here. He's a phenomenal artist, poet. He's extraordinary, and I'm in collaboration with another. She's a female scientist, Natalie. I believe Grossman out of Colorado. And what I'm collaborating, and we're doing a project where I'm doing the illustrations for, we're bringing feminine language to the cosmos. We're kind of wanting to speak about, because Natalie was saying that a lot of times in the language and the literature of science that the words are it's very masculinized, and they kind of refer to like certain like stellar relationships as being vampire and voyeuristic and a little bit violent. And so this project is all about bringing kind of like feminine, compassionate community types of language to the stars to kind of demasculinize and bring the violence down in terms of like how things are interacting. Yeah, so we're looking at a book that's going to be like 4 feet by 4 feet. You open it up and it's going to have an original soundtrack with it and original poetry. Yeah, so I think it's going to be like so cool.
So Amy, when I saw your last drawings there, I started to think about Hilma af Klint.
Oh.
And I just wonder, what was your reaction when you saw the show, if you saw the show?
Yeah, I did. I went to the show several times. I felt like, honestly, like a kindred. I felt like a kindred spirit with her. Like I walked in and I was kind of blown away because I feel like that's really, it's so similar to what my investigation and a lot of the forms and just some of the ways of like being curious in the world. And weirdly, like there was actually some of my drawings that looked like her drawings. I mean, there was a lot of simpatico, and in some ways I really have pulled her in as part of my internal audience. You know how all artists kind of work with an audience, like an internal audience. And I typically like think about a lot of scientists, but now Hilma's there too. I feel like such a, I felt like really for the first time, like I wasn't so alone as an artist. Like I've always felt really kind of like a weirdo on the outside, but after seeing her work, I felt a connection in a way that I hadn't felt before. So
does she give you more permission to go ahead, or?
She kind of does. Yeah, she really
Right.
does. She gives me permission to go ahead and to like, not be so afraid and just keep making the work no matter what. Like a lot of courage, I think. Yeah.
There was another question about if you could talk more about color as time from David.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because like color is time, because color is a wavelength, right? Just like when I was showing the little drawing, like color is a signature wave. It's very specific. And like when you look up into the sky, like the light that is right now flooding your room is it's not a now phenomena. Like it's, it took like what 8 minutes or 9 minutes to come, to travel from the sun to here. And even at the night sky, when you look up, I mean, it's all old light that's been traveling for millions of years, and it's taken millions of years to hit your retina. So light it's time, and so I feel like, I don't know, like also, I think color just in terms of like cultural time as well, like trends or fashions, or like, I don't know if anybody remembers avocado green from like the 70s or 80s. And, I just feel like time can really kind of slam down a conversation and a piece of work in a really, really quick way. And so I strive to keep that conversation super fluid. And I feel like I have to keep a lot of kind of like boundaries around color, because color to me can be very seductive, and I can really like just color for color's sake. So I feel like I need to use color as a tool and not like a means, in and of itself. Just for me. Um, so
So, hi, Amy, Dhruv here.
okay.
A quick question. So, one of the things that when I see your work, especially the first series that you showed, to me, it looked a lot more like how you look at the brain from bottom up. There are certain, the cerebellum and the cerebrum, especially the lower part, the patterns that you're using. And then more when you talking about the communication from the front and back, to me, looks like nerve fibers kind of communicating from the front, top to the bottom. I was wondering if you've looked at images of brain to as a concept, as an inspiration over here, because a lot of the things you're talking is brain is more physiology, but in terms of has a lot of, for me, it looked a lot of relevance or in that concept. I was curious if you have you looked at it, or did that inspire you in any ways?
Yeah. I haven't looked so much at images, but I've read. I do a lot of reading. I used to be an avid reader. It was part of my research and part of how I oriented my thinking around my work. But like neuroscience and the functions of the brain, and just all the like mysterious like correlations, and how like plastic it is, and how unknowable for us it is. I mean, so in that way, I've really pulled that in, because I guess I thrive in areas of like mystery. Like that's where I really resonate in terms of that's the stuff, because I feel like that's where I have the most freedom and I can really, my imagination has like full permission to kind of create its own forms, its own narratives, its own like language, really. So the brain is a huge inspiration for me, because it's like I have one. And it's like it's so, and just I've read a lot about like perception and the ways we perceive, and how um like on some level we can really only we see with patterns, we hear with patterns. So how much freedom do we have? I mean, there's a lot of like really, I think, interesting ideas and theories out there about what it is we're really thinking with. So I don't know. But yeah, I think at some level science is as like fascinating and creative as anything, really.
True. Yeah. Now that you say that, there's a very nice line that I had once read in one of the books, which says your eye sees what your mind perceives. It's you see, and what you as an eye. I mean, as an eye, whatever's being shown to you is only interpreted as what your mind shows it to you. If blue is going to be interpreted as black by your mind, that is what it is. And I think that's a very interesting way of interpretation and going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's even like in one of the things that my dad is in like quantumetronics, in quantumetronic, whatever. And one of the first kind of like concepts that I bit into when I was like in early science, was the whole concept of the observer, and how in physics you can't know position and velocity at the same time, so you have to choose what you want to see. And so it puts you know, the control is now part of the picture. You know, there's you know, it's a locked clock that we can't step out of, right? So we cannot step out of. We can't be separate, you know, from what we perceive at all. So we're all stuck. But no, that the implications of that I think are fascinating because you can't take yourself out.
Can I ask a quick question about the language you're developing? Do you have a lexicon that you kind of, you decide on a word and you apply it, or do these words come to you just as you're making?
Yeah, they come to me as I'm making. I think it's like a subconscious or unconscious. They come to me as I'm making it, and then I write them right on the piece of paper. So if you could see, like there's no, I write because it's like as I draw, then you know the language comes and I notate it. So or else I'll forget. There's no way. Like, 'cause I used to do that. I would draw and I'd think like certain words would come. And then as soon as I would come out of that drawing space, that mindset, I didn't remember anything. So I knew that I had to actually track it in that moment.
But that is part of the scientific process too, is you log what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I do keep that log, you know, and I have that over time, and I have a stack of works that I actually need to go through and like organize. And
I want to see that.
yeah, I want to do that as a project, like pull together like a book for
I'd love
myself.
that would be so neat.
Yeah.
Because in playwriting, this is called world building, and I think you are literally building a world of your own. It's cool. I love it. That's an approbation.
Hi, Amy. Can I ask if are you influenced by science fiction? Because Geiger comes to mind also with the work.
Oh yeah. Science fiction. Yeah, I do. I mean, I love science fiction just in terms of I mean, I was an avid Star Trek watcher growing up, and I loved it. And again, it's because they're in this unknown territory and they have, you know, free reign to kind of so yeah, I think I do. I was very, very inspired by science fiction kind of growing up because I do feel it's more permissive and more exploratory in some ways.
Well, it's, especially Star Trek, very hopeful. You know, it's not the dark thing of Galactica. It's a very hopeful world. And Klingon was a completely invented language.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
Takes a nerd to know that.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we've exhausted our questions, but this was very interesting. Thank you, Amy. Are there any more questions?
I have a question. Do you see those small pieces going back into the oil, or do you see them staying in the drawing realm?
Oh, they're definitely, and hi, Karen. They're definitely going back into the oil. They're going to go all over the place. I feel like they're so interesting because I do feel like the work kind of evolves me as well. Like it's like I make the work, right? But then the work turns around and kind of makes me, and then I'll make the work. So they will absolutely go back into the oils. I've just ordered paper for 2 large scale drawings. So I'm gonna start back into some drawing. And yeah, I'm really excited that I'm bringing this new kind of like piece of information, this new bits of words like into the next. So I'll have not only my painting background now going into the drawing, but I have this addition of the lexicon. So I'm like, who knows, you know, it's going to be quite interesting. It's nice to see you.
Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And we're doing this every month around a new EFA member going to the residency. So, if you're not signed up to our mailing list, please do that. It's on our website, efanyc.org. And Amy, do you want to share a good location to see more of your work?
Yeah, there's the EFA website. I have a website. I have Instagram, and I'm going to be doing an interview with the Brooklyn Rail next month with Anne McCoy. She's doing a series on women and spirituality in art. So that'll be coming up, and I'll post that on my website when that becomes available.
Great, thank you.
Mhm. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye. I see.